AskReddit opened. You gain control of J.K. Rowling's Twitter account for a day. What unnecessary piece of information do you add to Harry Potter lore? Potter Puppet Pals is now canon. ITS a PIPEBOMB. Edit, my first silver. You have my gratitude, kind stranger. Buckbeak is an animagus who is fully intelligent and capable of turning back into a human at any time, but doesn't because it's his fetish. I love this because he was so committed he let himself be executed in the original timeline. Harry's favorite finger, for no particular reason, is his left index finger. Also, inexplicably, that's Ginny's as well. All Hogwarts students are required to take a sex ed course that teacher Hagrid. Okay, now some needs to do a fanfic where Hagrid teaches sex ed. I don't mean an NC-17 thing either, I mean a legitimate humorous story. Harry wakes up in Hogwarts and everyone is gone for Christmas vacation when he has to defend the school from being robbed by Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern. Edit, silver? Damn. Thanks Yanil, D. Make the fan theory that the surviving Weasley twin becomes the Gene Wilder Willy Wonka later in life. The composition of the wand means nothing. A wizard could use a plastic drinking straw and it would work just fine, as long as they expect it to work. What happens when plastic straws are banned? Snape was a stamp collector. This is the real reason James Potter bullied him. It was really him and not the Weasleys who wrote and mailed the letter inviting him to the Quidditch World Cup. Although stamps on the envelope were his way getting back at James. Ron grew up to become Ed Sheeran. The sorting hat was %100 unnecessary for class distribution. Its primary purpose was to get rid of head lice. I've got a secret affliction, Harry. Completely unnecessary? And X200B. For a brief time in 1956 teenaged wizards used to bewitch vacuum cleaners to use in lieu of broomsticks. That is 1000 times better than most of the shit we've gotten. Ron likes to take all his clothes off when he poops. Oddly enough, I have a friend who's been compared to Ron many times who also does this. When you're using the invisible cloak, you're not actually invisible, you're naked, they just choose to ignore you as to not make things awkward. That explains why Fudge and Malfoy send Hagrid straight to Azkaban without a trial in book 2 when they walk into Hagrid's hut while Harry and Ron are hiding. Dudley Dursley has a Muggle-born daughter. She gets her Hogwarts letter and Dudley reconnects with Harry so he can learn about magic and be the opposite of his parents. Teenage wizards would jack off in front of the hottest moving paintings. Deleted. Hogwarts in the 60s was a drug-fueled Technicolor dancing orgy every night, and the only reason it doesn't come up more often is because not a lot of people clearly remember it. That must be when Dumbledore made the switch from sharp-looking suits to colorful flowy robes. Harry was born with a third testicle. Fred came back as a ghost. Harry put his name in the Goblet of Fire. And the portion of Voldemort's soul in him allowed him to do so because it was old enough. Harry and Ron used some of Hermione's hair plus Polyjuice potion to kill some time in the dormitories. That was great, Ron. I promise I'll be Hermione next time. You always say that. Double quote. The reason Dumbledore didn't bring back Harry's parents with the time turner is because Dumbledore always wanted a son of his own, but then changed his mind a few years later and dumped him at the Dursleys. There's a solid book that could be written about Dumbledore's attempts to defeat Voldemort through time travel. In the end, he had to choose to sacrifice his own life to make sure it happened. Hagrid tried Foe and didn't really care for it. This is so delightfully pointless. I love it. that most people don't play beyond their early 20s because they develop Quidditch arsehole. Every so often a player has to retire because a snitch goes somewhere where you don't usually want a vibrating golden orb, and frankly there's no returning from that ignominy. There's a witch writer called K.J. Rowling, famous for her Muggle book series Harold Rogers, where the protagonist engages in wacky Muggle adventures. Edit. 48 inbox notices and not one Hogwarts letter. With sidekicks Roberta Beasley and Herman Danger. Nobody gives a fuck about Harry after he graduates, and he ends up spending the rest of his life bitter and working as a barista at Wizard Starbucks in Hogsmeade. Fred and George Weasley switched places during the Battle of Hogwarts. When George died, Fred adopted George's life, complete with cutting off his ear because he figured George wouldn't want him to spoil the joke. Makes sense as to why George ended up marrying Angelina Johnson when it was Fred who dated her at Hogwarts. Deleted. Alternatively, Harry is flat broke at the end of book 7 and lives a life of complete poverty. You see, the Wizarding Bank was no longer willing to do business with the man who strolled in the front door and robbed the fuck out of them. Since goblins can't use wands, they also seized all funds from Harry's vault to pay wizards to repair the damages. Buckbeak was a metaphor. That the cauldron Voldemort was rebirthed enduring Goblet of Fire used to belong to Horace Sloane. It was gifted to his favorite student, Tom Riddle, the year Riddle left Hogwarts. That's a perfectly reasonable piece of info, though. After book 2 and the Polyjuice experiments, Ron and Hermione permanently switched places. Blimey, Hermione,